Hey everyone, I'm Katie Daryl, and today we are at home and social with Justin Hawkins of The Darkness. I
Yeah,
can't even try to get up there. I can't even get there, man.
me neither. About 9 p.m. is when I start to rock.
What
After
is the warm-up process like for your vocals, or is it do you really just kind of and get there?
oh no, that's the last thing you should do. You should never clear your
Really?
throat like that. Yeah, it's really bad for your vocal cords. You're supposed to just ease them in like a and you move your chin around.
Like a ghost?
Yeah, a bit like a ghost. Yeah, that's why ghosts are always in such high spirits, and they always have amazing timbre, and it resonates throughout the whole of the haunted house. It's because they warm up properly.
I love this. I feel like I want to talk the album, but now I want to talk about spooky ghosts and Halloween and
Yeah,
this season of haunted mansions.
absolutely. My record label will be delighted if we do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Justin. Well, thank you so much for being here. The new Darkness album is dropping on November 19th. It is called Motorheart. A lot of the stuff that people have fallen in love with the band for will be heard here. I mean, your soaring vocals, amazing guitar solos and riffs. Are there any surprise things that you fiddled around with in the studio for this album?
Well, there's the addition of some orchestral moments on it. You know, there's string arrangements, which we don't do very often. We haven't done that since the second album, really, and this is like the seventh, I think. So we're back in orchestral world, which is nice. Some dramatic monologues, which won't surprise too many people. I think the dramatic monologue is third only to soaring vocals, guitar solos, and then dramatic monologues in the list of most important elements of a song.
I know most bands obviously write and record more songs than that actually make the album.
Mm.
So, what do you got on the side? What didn't make the album and why?
There's about there's probably 2 albums of material that gets done and doesn't make it. Usually it's because you hear an attitude forming in the songs that you choose, you know, it's not really a concept record, but it has to sound like the band is on the same page throughout
Mhm.
the album really. And then so there's things that maybe were a little bit too sad or a bit too manic or just didn't sound like the sort of thing we wanted to be doing in this moment.
A word that is often used to describe the darkness is extravagant. All right, this is rock and roll to melt your face off. Congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
What does extravagant mean to you?
Um, I think it means that we don't shy away from the trappings of excessive arrangements. Um, More is more when it's more. Sometimes less is more, but we try everything, and a lot of it sticks because you know bombast plus um, you know a heartfelt sentiment is really powerful, and it's what rock should be really. So I think it's just because we're not shy about what we do and who we are and why we do it. You know, we want people to dance and cry and laugh, and you can't do all those things with apologetic music. You have to be proud.
Something I love talking with musicians about is sex robots.
Mhm.
Let's talk about your sex robot in the music video that you guys just released.
Well, actually, yeah. I mean, all the songs on this record are about relationships. Nearly all songs in the world are about relationships, probably, but they always tend to end, in my experience, with disappointment. So the 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 idea of Motorheart is like this character who is describing these events decides to try a romantic liaison with a man-made object, and then finds to his dismay that all of these sort of relationship issues that occurred previously with living sentient creatures also occur in the relationship with a custom built piece of metal. So at some point it's a journey of self-discovery, because then you sort of have to ask, is it me?
When the album was done, right? And you're listening to the mastered, songs and playing it back.
Mhm.
Do you rock out to yourself? Like, do you air guitar or do you then like tend to lean into the drums and hear what Rufus was doing and like air drum? Like, what do you do when you're sitting there listening?
Um, I don't listen to it that much. I think it's all one-way traffic, really. I like to create something, send it off, and then that's it. Don't think about it again. But when things like mixes are happening, um, I don't think I listen to anything in particular. You just sort of imagine how it feels, and is my face still attached to my head? Can you see skull through the apertures of my nasal cavities, or is the flesh still intact? And these are the questions that you have to ask yourself, especially when there's guitar solos happening. Oftentimes, um, you find that the solo just isn't loud enough, and then you say turn that up, and next thing you know, you're away, and it's all good. Just main thing is make sure the vocals and the guitar solos are turned up, I think.
Who outside of the band do you like to listen to the albums before they're released and kind of get their feedback? Is there, a best friend, a family member, someone where you're like, listen to this? And do you say, I want your honest feedback? Or do you say, listen to this? And then I don't want to know. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
Actually, I've got a couple of friends who I like to do that with, but the thing is, I don't need the feedback, because I think when you play a song to somebody, the act of playing it tells you something. Like, you feel something as you're doing it. You either feel like a little bit embarrassed and you want to crawl underneath something, or you just know that it's great because the act of doing it has made you sort of feel something like pride or whatever. And feedback is always irrelevant because you can feel it straight away. Um, you don't need somebody to tell you if it's great. You don't need somebody to tell you if it's rubbish, but you do need to play it to somebody to understand, the reality of it from your own point of view, which is the only one that matters.
For those of you just joining us, I'm Katie Daryl. He is Justin Hawkins of the band The Darkness. Their new album is called Motorheart. Sorry, Motorhead's awesome though, by the way.
Yeah, I love Motorhead. Yeah.
Motorheart. It is available November 19th. Justin, you mentioned the word embarrassed. And
When
to me, when I look at you, right, and I see your stage persona, I've seen the music videos. I don't think to myself, Justin Hawkins is a guy that gets embarrassed. Is that a facade, or do you, I mean, do you strut around like when you're not turning it on? Is that always you, or are those embarrassing moments for you?
I think life is just a series of embarrassing moments, and in between, you just have stuff that's you're getting away with. Just waiting for the next embarrassing moment to occur. It might be in this interview at some point. It might have already happened in this interview, but you actually get a bit immune to it, though. I don't think. I mean, sometimes I feel embarrassed about stuff, but most of the time, I'm able to style it out, or not care really. I mean, you can't afford to go through life worrying about what people think, especially if you're doing this kind of music. Um, in this kind of world as well, there's too many people who are worried about wearing. They don't want to wear a particular thing because they're worried that their friends might laugh at them. And if they're worried about their friends laughing at them, then what about the world at large? How can you take on something like being a performer and putting yourself out there if even your friends stop you from, you know what I mean? It's just
Mhm.
I think it's just I think I've come to I think I probably realized quite early on that embarrassing moments are to be embraced. I like things like awkward silences in shows. I like it when things go wrong. Um, Apart from the physical pain that sometimes happens, I like accidents. I like bum notes. I like anything that gives me something challenging to try and work back from and reverse out of. It's what makes actually think that's what makes live music so much fun. It's you don't go there to watch a perfect recital. I mean, you might do that if you go to a classical concert, but that isn't why you go to a rock and roll show. You go to a rock and roll show to see people reacting to stuff that's beyond their control. See people who are operating at the very limit of their ability, and things are going to go wrong. And then at that point, it's, are they going to get embarrassed? Are they going to stand there crying, or are they going to take all their clothes off and make it special? The answer in a Darkness concert is the second one. They're going to take all their clothes off and make it special.
Very Red Hot Chili Peppers, right?
Indeed, who are one of my favorite bands, actually.
Um, your 2003 debut album went quadruple platinum. When you went into this album, did you go
I called it
in
quad plat, by the way, quad
uh,
plat.
yeah, of course. That's the word of the biz. Of course. Sorry.
Yeah.
Did you when you released this album, did you say to yourself, "I hope this is going to be huge," or did you say, "I know this is going to be huge"?
I think we all knew it was going to be huge. That's the reality. I don't think we ever said it, but it was kind of we could feel. It's that thing when you play it to people and you can feel whether something's going to resonate or not. You can feel the power of a song as you play it. So we knew we had something special when we were mixing it, really, and it's difficult to justify saying that because we'd had no experience of having had hits. It was our first record, but we just knew. Sometimes you just know.
We are coming upon the holiday season and the darkness, and you specifically, Justin. It seems you love Christmas and you love doing something special musically for Christmas.
Christmas
Are you
celebrations.
thinking Christmas yet, or is it too soon?
Um, Part of me is always thinking Christmas. I mean, the next thing that we're preparing for is a Christmas tour, really, in the UK. It's an opportunity for us to play our big Christmas hit. And, it's cold. People are huddled together. Despite COVID, they're going to be huddled together and singing.
Just breathing on each other.
Yeah. I mean, with a bit of luck, there'll be some people behaving responsibly. But it is Christmas, and that is darkness time. So God help us all.
The lightness of the darkness at Christmas time. I mean, we might need to work on that key phrase, right?
Yeah, that's good,
Um,
actually.
you mentioned that you are going into your tour. The album Motorheart is going to be released on November 19th. You'll be doing a European tour, but there's a lot still up in the air in terms of will you make it to the United States, right? You got to think
Mm.
about COVID. You got to think about visas. And
Mhm.
then that puts your life on hold, right? Like right now, it's hard for you to make plans for like what's happening in April. And is that stressful for you and your family to kind of always be like waiting for an answer?
Well, I mean, this is exceptional circumstances. I think people are just, I'm excited to come and play in America, and we're trying to do a routing for that. But it is challenging because a lot of the venues that we would normally play in didn't make it through the pandemic. I think there's a lot of demand for the remaining venues when things go back to normal, and it will be really challenging to plot a route through the States that makes sense for us. But we are working on it. I wouldn't say that life goes on hold until that point. There are specialist folk within the organization whose job it is to try and find solutions to these problems. And I'm just waiting for an email to say, pack your bags, States next.
The new Darkness album is called Motorheart. It's due out November 19th. For those of you just joining us, I'm Katie Daryl. He is Justin Hawkins. Let's talk about leaked music and set the story straight. Did you really go on eBay and buy a advanced leaked copy of your 2005 album? Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was. When did eBay start? I suppose it wasn't the early days of eBay, but it just seemed like an obvious place to look. There was a publication in Australia, I think, that reviewed the album and gave it a shitty review. I was a bit annoyed about that. And then I found on eBay the copy that they were supposed to have listened to review it, and it hadn't been opened. It was a sealed, numbered copy. So I bought it, and I think the person who reviewed the album without having listened to it no longer works in music journalism, which is a real shame. It's a tragedy for the industry, obviously. But I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, really. I feel bad that he lost his job, but at the same time,
Sure.
you've got to be some sort of asshole to review something without listening to it in the first place, and probably shouldn't be doing that particular job.
Well, let's just talk about leaked music in general. Some bands even do it as a gimmick. Right now with your album about to be released, do you get kind of stressed out and nervous that someone's going to leak something that they're not supposed to?
I'm not sure if it really applies to a band at our level. It was more of a thing when you're doing mega platinum records and quad plat stuff.
The quad
Yeah, I
plats.
think when after we'd had a quad plat album, I was concerned about the next one. But I think that the concept of leaking things is just redundant now. Nothing. There is no what's the word? And there's nothing sacred anymore. You know,
Yeah.
you can't like the MP3 that you want, people to review the album and listen to. That's going to get leaked at some point. That's just the way it is, and it won't go very far in our case because there's a more selective interest in what we're doing. I think it's probably a bigger issue if you're Coldplay, but even then, do you really care about anything when you live in a huge house and you're doing stadium touring? What does it matter? you know,
Yeah, exactly.
traditionally, I
Losing a
think,
couple mil at that point doesn't matter.
yeah, that's like he's probably got a couple of million down the back of his settee if he looks carefully. He'll be able to find it. But I think it's the things that things like piracy. I mean, for example, if you go on tour in Europe and then you rock up to Italy, there's nearly 100% piracy saturation in the t-shirts that people are wearing to the shows, and a lot of times the sort of bootleg merchandise is better than the stuff we're selling, and it's just nice to see the name on there. I think the album tends to be seen nowadays for a band at our level as a promotional device for the touring that we'd like to do. In which case, the more people that hear it, the better. So.
Speaking of, the merch that you see that's illegally sold, the pirates.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a cool design that you're like, okay, hey, we should do that. We should
Yeah,
pirate the pirate.
Absolutely, you see it all the time because some of those guys are really talented. That's the tragedy of it. There's nothing to suggest that because it's not official, it's not good. It just isn't official.
Stealing what they stole, you got to do it.
Exactly. I think that sometimes like you see them and like I remember I used to see like a hoodie with the album art, and it's like, oh, that's really obvious. Actually, why didn't we do that? Just put the album on a t-shirt. It's obvious. It's obvious.
Duh.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Madame Tussauds wax model that is on display of you. Have you seen it in person? And are you appreciative of the likeness and similarities?
I was there for the grand unveiling, but I don't think it's there anymore. I think it's in a cupboard somewhere. They at one point,
they lit the wick.
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
They're like, we're going to literally melt his face off.
I mean, to be honest, my face does look like that a lot of the time because of all the guitar solos I have to listen to. But now it's I would say that the wax thing is kind of drooped a bit here. The eyes are down here somewhere. It looks like I've had two strokes, one on both sides. So, but still an uncanny resemblance from the waist down.
All right, I'd like to talk gear with you. You're a Gibson Les Paul guy, right?
Yeah. I love Les Pauls. I love Les Pauls. Who doesn't?
Do you have a guitar that's specific for home versus the tour? Like where you're like, this one's not allowed to leave the house. It's kind of like my Lovey if you were a 4-year-old. Don't lose it.
Yeah, there is one that I love, and it's it's not in this room actually. I should have thought about that. I've got a Gibson Seashell, and there's a sort of luthier stroke, one of those guys that did all the fancy inlays on the guitars. His name was Bruce Kunkel, and during September the 11th, he had some family in I think he had some family in New York that he couldn't reach, and he was waiting to hear if they were okay. And he was carving at the guitar furiously, and then his family luckily turned out to be okay. And he'd created a Les Paul standard that just looks like a seashell, and they finished it with like a nice weird sort of satin pearlescent finish, and it's a one-off. There's only one seashell, Gibson seashell in the whole world, and it stays in my house.
Amazing.
In the panic room.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure the insurance on that's a pretty penny.
Yeah, I think it's probably worth quite a bit of money, I expect, but hopefully it won't come to that.
He is Justin Hawkins. I'm Katie Daryl. This is At Home and Social. The Darkness, their new album is called Motorheart. It is due out November 19th. Everyone's going to love it. Tell me why. Why will everyone love it?
I think it's an album that was created during the pandemic that doesn't refer to the pandemic and isn't informed by the pandemic. It's not a moping song. It doesn't deal with the issues of sort of tragedy and uncertainty and suffering that COVID has brought about. It's actually a really defiant, fun record. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, it's got loads of awesome guitar solos in it, soaring vocals by yours truly.
Boring.
Um, and people will, if you like the darkness, then you'll love this record. If you like
See that?
music, you'll love this record.
If you're not stupid, you'll love this record.
Unless you're a fucking idiot, you're gonna love this record.
Justin, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It was a pleasure to meet you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Hey there, thanks for watching Access TV. Subscribe, follow, like, and do all the good stuff. And make sure you leave a comment below. I don't know, just let us know what your favorite Access TV show is, or who your favorite bands are, and what artists you're into, or just say hi, man. I like to be told hi. We love hearing from you. That's the point, all right? Keep it coming.